Hi, I know this session is a little late. It's been graduation week for my daughters who graduated from high school. Um, but this particular paralegal power break is really one of my favorite topics to talk on because I am a paralegal in the state of California. And currently, California is the only state where paralegals are uh, regulated, meaning that we have some various laws that we have to comply with that are similar to attorneys, um, their compliance when it regarding continuing legal education and then determining who can actually use the paralegal title. So in this particular session, I am going to discuss paralegal licensing and regulation, and also provide an option for you to discuss with each other within the platform how you feel about paralegal licensing and regulation. Do you think that it's something that helps the career overall or the profession overall, or do you think that it's something that places unnecessary restrictions on individuals that work within the profession? So first, let's understand the difference between licensing and regulation. Licensing is where you are required to obtain some type of training and or uh, agency or governmental approval before you start to conduct certain type of activities. So, like for attorneys, attorneys are licensed. You cannot practice law without passing the bar exam, which provides attorneys with licensing or the license to practice law. Now, regulation is different in licensing, where regulation pertains to having a set of rules, procedures, and codes that you must adhere to once you either obtain licensing or once you enter into a profession. So, like with the example I just gave with the attorneys needing a license in order to practice law, once they obtain that law license, they are regulated by their state bar association, the various model rules of professional conduct. Now, with paralegals, paralegals have voluntary licensing and also voluntary regulation through various paralegal associations. So you have NALA, NIFPA, which is the National Association of Legal Assistants or Paralegals, and then NIFPA, the National Federation of Paralegal Associations. You also have various other national and regional paralegal associations that provide voluntary licensing. So you are not required to be licensed to be a paralegal, but some paralegals um, get certified or certification. This is different than an ABA certificate. These particular certifications, like with the CP and RP and these different certifications, pretty much are in line with licensing within the paralegal profession. But again, they're voluntary. So you do not have to obtain these particular credentials or licensings per se in order to become a paralegal. Now, regulation for paralegals comes in when a paralegal joins a paralegal association. So a paralegal can be licensed or a certificate, have the different the paralegal certification, and they are regulated by the paralegal association, or a paralegal can join the paralegal association and not have the paralegal certification. Regulation just provides some um, parameters and some guidelines how the particular individuals that belong to that particular organization must adhere to. Now, as I mentioned before, California is the only state that has mandatory some regulation in place for paralegals. So in California, um, there's the California Rules of Professional Conduct. I believe it's 6450, and several other code sections that determine who can actually use the paralegal title, and then also requires all paralegals to maintain continuing legal education. So, unlike other states where any individual can use the paralegal title, here in California, you cannot use the paralegal title unless you work under the supervision of an attorney, and then you also must comply with the continuing legal education requirements. Now, there are some cases which you can look on the California Association of Paralegals website. It's CAPPAparalegals.org, I believe, and there are some different cases where court fees were reduced substantially. In one case where an individual was working for an organization on a case, and they claimed legal fees for her services, but the judge determined that she was not a paralegal as defined by the California law, and therefore reduced those costs. So that is the ramifications for not staying in compliance with the rules here in California, where a judge or even opposing counsel can question legal fees that are being assessed or claimed for individuals that work on a case as a paralegal when they don't actually comply with the regulation on who can actually use that title or not. So, that's some just an overview of paralegal licensing and regulation. And again, for the most part, regulation is voluntary. Individuals that join paralegal associations or obtain a certification are volunteering to be regulated. It's not required. Again, except for if you're here in California, you have that regulation pertaining to using the paralegal title, continuing education, and some various other aspects. So it's important as a paralegal, especially if you're looking to advance in your career, to go the extra step. And this is just my opinion, to go the extra step and to get some type of certification, to join a paralegal association, somehow have a way to demonstrate to your current or future employers that you take the profession seriously and that you do adhere to some guidelines pertaining to your conduct as a paralegal. That will provide them with the assurance that you will adhere to their particular model rules of professional conduct, because a lot of the paralegal associations, canons, and ethical rules that I've reviewed all require paralegal to stay in compliance, understand what their managing attorney's professional conduct rules are, and to stay in compliance with that. So, it provides your employer with that extra assurance that you are proactive in understanding what their professional conduct rules are and doing everything necessary to make sure that you stay in compliance with those things, even though it is not something that you can be sanctioned for, lose your licensing for, or anything like that. Just you going the extra mile to provide them with assurance, and then also for you to advance in your career as a paralegal. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this particular session up. This particular topic is it's heavily debated. You have both sides of, of the argument, some that don't think paralegal licensing is necessary or paralegal regulation because paralegals work under attorneys and attorneys are licenses. So individuals believe it's unnecessary, that argue that it's unnecessary. That's their reasoning for taking that stance. So, I'm going to open up the discussion board and actually post, question pertaining to your opinion, getting your opinion as far as what you think about paralegal licensing and regulation. Do you think that it helps the paralegal profession? Do you think that it actually is something that creates barriers for people to actually enter the profession? And, how do you feel about statewide regulation of paralegals like what we have here in California?